people set up political parties to get an income. That's a problem for a black voter. What we need to get leaders in political parties where people who are leading these parties don't need an income from the states or politics.
Yes, we said that about Cyril Ramaphosa.
No, but Cyril Ramaphosa, he was a traitor. He did not. He got his BEE money. That's different. That's not an entrepreneur. That's not a business person.
You're dealing with a voter that's saying, they gave me a slice of bread. I'm good.
Yeah. I mean,
that could be a factor in the narrative.
Absolutely. That's almost like trauma voting.
Yes, but you also don't know what you don't know.
I think the ANC is not at the place where they understand that they are the problem. What the opposition parties should do in a society like this, they should almost operate like they're the government. I never see opposition parties being the first there, the first responders to help people, to be there, to fight the gangsters.
Got you.
King David Studio Podcast.
About 2 years ago or so, I had a chat with Professor William Gumede about governance issues and really the state of decay in terms of infrastructure in the country, and that it's just not going to get better. It's likely to get worse. We've had a sudden, I'll call it spring cleaning of Johannesburg. I wonder if it falls within progress or it's just we have guests coming, make sure that the house is clean. And as soon as they leave, we go back to normal again. I don't know what he's likely to say today. He's here again. We anticipate the elections coming. We have a G20 chaos. We have countries that are not coming to South Africa for whatever reason, of a genocide that only they know about. Well, he's here again today. How are you, Prof?
Oh, very happy to be with you. I mean, we had such an exciting session 2 years ago.
Yes.
And I mean, although we talked about many things, we talked about infrastructure and how important infrastructure is in economic growth in a country. And that countries that don't focus on infrastructure, I mean, two ways that one has to focus on infrastructure. One is to maintain what you've got. The second one is to build new infrastructure. Now, if you don't do those two things, you don't get economic growth. And people don't understand, if you don't have infrastructure, you can't create the jobs. You can't reduce your poverty. I don't think people can make the link between lack of infrastructure or infrastructure maintenance and neglect and poverty and unemployment.
Help us make the link. Treat us like we are five.
Yeah.
And we're trying to understand. It sounds obvious, but maybe it doesn't to those that are not applying their mind. Help us understand the link between, and use a practical example, a decaying bridge or a street, a road that is in bad shape and continues to be in bad shape, like you would find in Johannesburg, the one that exploded, for example. Help us get how that links to an ordinary Jabu who lives in Soweto and who's struggling to get a job.
I can try in two ways. Maybe the one way is sort of bigger economics way. Now, if you look at the countries, let's say since the end of independence in Africa, let's just say since sort of the Second World War, the African countries on the one hand, and then you get Asian countries also came out of colonialism. Now, the big difference why some of the countries like, let's say, Singapore or even Taiwan and South Korea, now those countries, just immediately after the Second World War, were poorer than African countries. Okay, that's the first thing for people to understand that. And then what they did different, I mean, many things, but one key thing that they did different, they invested in infrastructure almost immediately. African countries didn't do that. So if you travel around the continent, most of the infrastructure is either still the colonial infrastructure or the colonial infrastructure has been destroyed. Meaning, and that's one of the reasons why those countries are poor versus, say, a Singapore or South Korea. That's just sort of the big thing. Now, an example at home, I mean, I'm an advisor to Horkro, and Horkro is South Africa's agriculture body for deciduous fruit. So South Africa export. That's one of our competitive industries because we export globally. Now you think about it as those type of fruits. gets exported, but we've got competitors. There's the Australians, there's the Chileans. Everyone wants to get into the UK, in the European market or the US market.
Yes.
Now, we need to get our products from the farms to the port, then from the port to our market.
That's it.
Right?
To those international markets.
Absolutely. The Australians have to do the same. The Chileans or the Brazilians or Argentinians, they all need to do the same. Now, then you look at firstly, we start off our roads, totally broken. Our rails, non-existent. Our ports, totally congested. So, and there's a cell life with this type of fruit. If it's too long on the road, it's destroyed when it gets on the other the other side. Yeah. So what has happened, because our infrastructure is absolutely totally collapsed, our products, when it gets there, it gets there late potentially, or it's totally destroyed. Now, what does it mean now for the farmer? For the workers, on the other hand, the farmer doesn't get that money, don't get to sell, has to retrain people, and so on. And worst case scenario, has to close down.
Or increase the price of the product that stays. So when we go to the shops, we find it slightly more expensive.
Absolutely, you're right, and that's the other thing about the infrastructure. So in our case, it's not only the infrastructure that is broken. We've got other things that's broken because of security issues, because of lack of rule of law. That farmer will have to get extra security also. So now the only way to survive commercially for that farmer is to increase the price then, and so on, to make up for all of the things. And it's not only the farmers. You can take any other product, the same, that goes into the retail and so on. So we talk about inflation.
That is unrelated to real economic reasons.
Absolutely.
It's related to external factors.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so heartbreaking, when Reserve Bank, for example, when they increase interest rates and so
inflation targeting.
And so on. But, they're getting the wrong, they deal with the wrong problem. Yeah. And the problem is our broken infrastructure. And then we've got another problem is our state-owned entities in our municipalities. Now, how does municipalities fit into that? So let's say your municipality is, because most of our rural municipalities and city municipalities, they are also broken. So your lights are not working, your water is not working. The rates, they just increase the rates despite they're not giving you services.
The product is not improving, but the price is
the price, yeah. So everyone who sets up a company has to increase their prices to offset the lack of services they get, number one. And secondly, to offset this increased rates from municipalities and state-owned entities. And thirdly, for security, because and so on. So that's where the inflation is. So if we want to deal with inflation, we now have to clean up our municipalities, our state-owned entities, and we have to deal with lack of rule of law, and we have to deal with infrastructure.
Yeah. It's I remember even the last time we spoke, it sounds dire. Prof, it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Have we gotten better or worse? Or we've stayed the same? I'm afraid of your answer.
It's heartbreaking where we are. As a country, I think we need a moment, we need a period at least, electoral cycle of stability and boringness. We need to be, as a country, we need to become boring. Where we are now is a couple of things.
It's too exciting.
In
a bad way.
In a bad way.
Yes.
It's too exciting.
Like there's too much.
It's too much going on in the country in a bad way. Last year we the government of national unity was established. I think that's provided us an opportunity and a space to say, well, actually, let's calm down as a country. Let's bring together multiple political parties to co-govern, because up to then, the ANC did not deliver for us. The ANC delivered chaos. ANC delivered failure at almost every level, and so on. But the potential new thing of the GNU was, look, now let's bring in other energies, other ideas, other kinds of capacities. Sadly, that hasn't delivered for us.
How many? A year and a half?
Hasn't delivered. And the problem, sadly, again, lies again with the ANC. Because the ANC has been there for 30 years before. So the ANC behaves still as if it is a majority party. So its culture...
It has a president.
And because it has a president, now that culture of the ANC... They cause us chaos and failure and breakdown and standards breaking. That culture is continuing, or because the ANC is insisting that culture continues.
My question in relation to that, Prof, is because if we dissect your answer into finer details and slice it up, we're going to find one sentence that says South Africa is likely to do better without the ANC.
Absolutely. It's also, in a way, I know we blame the ANC, but we must blame the voters. At some point, we have to blame our voters to say, if you're a voter, because we've now have local government elections are coming. If you're going to vote for, let's start off for a political party that did not deliver for you, and you vote for that party again, you are going to get the same. I mean, in no rational expectations can there be a change. If you're going to vote for a violent person, you're going to get violence. If you're going to vote for a corrupt person, you're going to get corruption.
That's it.
If you're going to vote for someone that has never run anything in their lives, anything, not even a spas of soap. Okay, no, it's hard to run spas of soap.
I wonder who you're talking about.
Because you have to wake up early in the morning, you have to balance the books, and you can go, so you need to vote, or a person needs to vote for somebody who has run something outside politics. If you're going to vote for someone who's only been in politics and has done nothing else in their life, nothing else, you are in trouble, and so on. And that is, for me, the criteria that voters must look at. And our problem is that voters vote based on the past. That's the first thing. They vote based on color issues.
Past is liberation.
Liberation past.
Yes.
Or something on color, or they vote on, my family voted this way, I'm voting. My community, this is our community, this is a political
what we do here.
legacy. This is what we do here.
Yeah.
Now, or they vote like it is a soccer club Kaiser Chiefs,
Which is emotions.
Like failing Saturday after Saturday.
But I love them.
I love them.
Yes.
Or like it's the church. Also, like, I can't break from the church. Things are not working. I can't move from this church to another church. Now, politics is not that. It's not that way. Politics is the opposite. Is as a voter, you have to vote based on competence. You cannot vote based on this is now Kaiser Chiefs. This is my church. I'm not breaking. This is my family. We all.
Or this is my wife. She's cheating on me continuously, but I love it. It's all emotions.
Absolutely, yeah. So, if you want to vote for what is best for yourself and for your own family, you have to put all of those things aside and vote for competence. Now, I must tell you, although I say vote for competence, it's not so easy in our country. Maybe in other countries it's a little easier.
Why is it not easy in our country? I have a follow-up question to your earlier statement, but let's complete this thought.
It's not so easy because we've got a past. In our past, we had divisions based on our past, color division, political divisions.
And not just periodic, not for 2 days, not for 3 days.
Totally.
Systemically, generationally.
Generationally, yeah.
Yes.
So to say for a person, to tell a person, look, you know what, your family, your community, you have voted for a certain party all of these years and supported this party, but this party hasn't delivered for you. Now vote for another party.
Jeez.
And you may now have to vote for a party where, say, like you're black, and now you move to
another black.
You've supported,
yes.
Black, let's say black-led parties. Now all of these black-led parties are not delivering. They're corrupt, they're incompetent, and so on. Now you look at your options, but now there's a predominantly white political party that is delivered in your area. Now you have to make that jump, but it's not a natural fit for you. Then you think of the history. The history. But in politics, you have to make the psychological break in order to deliver a better life for you. That's actually the difference between politics and sports and religion.
You're going to want to hear this because Hollywood Bets is running an incredible promotion. It's called the Habanero Jackpot Race, where you stand a chance to win a share of a massive, and I mean a massive 3 million cash prize pool that is running all through November. Here's how it works. Every single night between 8:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m., a race phrase begins. During that 2-hour window, a jackpot is 100% guaranteed to trigger. To get in on the action, all you have to do is bet 2 rands or more on any Habanero game during the race time. Players who place a bet closest to the moment of the jackpot triggers will win a guaranteed position. So if you're ready to try your luck, head on down to the pinned comments right below this video and click the link to get started. This is your chance to try your luck, but as always, you have to be 18 years and older to play. Please, and I mean please, make sure you bet responsibly. Let's head back to the video. Let's talk about the voter again. It's a follow-up question. Your opening statement said we have to pause for a second and blame the voter. The voter is not voting correctly. Their standard of delivery is in question. Because if you were to really analyze it, you would then end up with the question that says, hey man, you want a loaf of bread. I'm happy with 1 slice of bread. Do you see how our standards are not the same? No. You're dealing with a voter that's saying, they gave me a slice of bread. I'm good.
Yeah. I mean,
that could be a factor in the narrative.
Absolutely. That's almost like trauma voting. I mean,
yes, but you also don't know what you don't know.
I guess you do. I mean, that's true because think about this. I mean, I grew up in the 80s. We took the train still. Took the train in the township, took the train. The train ran on time. I went to school and we took it. I mean, in order to get to the schools, I had to take it was a train 5:30 in the morning train, right? And then often I came very, very late. And I tell you, every half and 15 minutes is a train. Now to explain for a new generation, actually there were trains running and blacks on time, and blacks were in the train. We were taking the train. That was our only mode for the majority of us, with a mode of transportation. It's like a totally different world. Yeah? So the sad part of it is some people have actually now grown up in the post-1994 on failure. So failure becomes the standard. I was thinking, it was just a couple of weeks ago when Prasa trains were running again. And then Fikile Mbalula actually tweeted to say, the trains are running, we are working. But the trains had been running before, and then it was destroyed.
I used the train from Mamelodi to Pretoria city centre for years.
Yeah, yes. And it was destroyed, and then people were celebrating.
It was destroyed during COVID.
It was just, even before COVID. Yeah. So COVID, it was just sort of, broke it, ended what was left, but that was already broken. Now, the issue is on your standards, that voters would actually, or many people will actually celebrate a self-induced failure. So the ANC failed on it, and that broke it. And now fix it again, and not even properly, because the photo that was there just was tweeted by Mbalula was actually, it was a train, but you see the masses of people on the station. The building was falling apart.
Oh boy!
So that's the standards. Yeah. So unfortunately, also our voters. Our standards of many of our voters are so low, they have not hold the ANC accountable, but also they're not holding also the other parties also accountable, the EFFs, the MKs, and so on. So it's not just the ANC. Our voters are really, they're not holding their leaders and political parties accountable to a top standards.
Because we all breathe the same air, we use the same electricity, we drink the same water, the standard must be the same. You can't have better water in Santen and bad water in Alex. Yeah. Has to be the same. Nicer electricity has to be the same. So the standard should be the same. Absolutely. However, the voter's perspective of standard is not the same. Then how do we equalize it? Because there's a lot. My very innocent, uneducated analysis speaks of levels of education, level of understanding, level of patience and interest to be understanding of the factors. But maybe there's a more academic perspective of the issue.
I mean, it's all the things you were saying, particularly on patience. I mean, I think people are too patient. I mean, I get extremely angry and upset often when I engage with the public in the work communities. I mean, I was 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was invited by the Independent Electoral Commission to the Eastern Cape and to engage with them around voter education. How do we improve voter education? How do we get people to live their game in terms of, from a voter education point of view? And then there were people, sort of from the public who would say, well, it's only 30 years. What do we expect? It's like, no. You know what? All of this, I made examples of your Singapores, your Taiwan,
your Koreas,
your
South
Mauritius,
Korea,
Botswana, Cape Verde.
Even China, because China's change was very quick.
All of these countries did it under 30 years. I mean, they went and they said, we're going to change our country.
Yeah.
Under 30 years, and we're going to hold people accountable. And they also lift their standards to say, this is the standard. And maybe there's a bigger issue about how us as Black South Africans look at standards. And maybe that's a public discussion that we must have.
I think so.
Among ourselves. What is standards? Are we happy? We're happy with the kind of political leaders that we vote for. Are they our standards? We're voting for people, for example, on the basis of if you sing well, we're voting for you. Is that a good standard?
If you're charismatic, that's the line that you're missing in that statement.
If you are there and you're a gangster, we vote for you. That's our standard. If you have never in your life ran anything, you've never had a job outside politics, that's our standard. We vote for you. You are absolutely dishonest and totally corrupt.
That's what they're lying about you. They don't, it's a lie. You're a good man.
Absolutely.
That's a standard. You see how...
Yeah. So we have to have a conversation, because when I said there's something about our country, unfortunately, which undermine the present because we base in the past, our headspace is in the past, our psyche is in the past. And maybe other countries, there are countries like us who also with psyche in the past, but they've overcome that. So we've got 2 or 3 excuses, which is legitimate and not legitimate.
Okay.
So, we would say, well, apartheid caused... Because of apartheid, we can't. 30 years. Apartheid was long and colonialism was long, and 30 years is short. Now that's an excuse. Now,
it's a valid excuse.
It's a valid, but it's an invalid excuse.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there's other countries who had colonialism for long periods, and under 30 years we were out of colonialism.
Finish your thought.
Yeah. So we really have to raise the game and say, well, actually, then vote for people that will turn around the country in the shortest periods of time. So if we're going to vote for people who are also going to use that excuse, then we're going to be stuck here forever. In fact, the sad part of it, the first African country became independent in 1847.
Wow.
Liberia.
What
is
the state?
They're almost as poor as they were in 1847. Now, people are still talking about colonialism. The same with all of the other African countries. There's 55 African countries according to the UN, United Nations. Of the 54, 49 or so are in bad state. They're almost as poorer than they were during colonialism. Now, those countries, most of those countries... ended colonialism 60 or the years.
We are some of the young ones.
Yeah. Yes. Now they still have the same issues, colonialism and so on. My fear is in 200 years we will still have the same conversation in South Africa.
We run the risk in this conversation of getting in an area that a lot of people, when you say it, you get slapped in the wrist immediately that says, lest you forget, Apartheid must never be forgotten. It's a part of our damage that we carry with us, and we'll probably transfer it to our young ones when they come through. So we cannot forget it. We must always put it up first to say we are here because of it. Are we wrong to have that type of narrative in this conversation that says you can't forget it? Of course, it has to be a part of us.
I'm wrong. We are wrong if we obsess about it. So we are totally wrong.
Yeah.
What we have to say, yes, it happened, and yes, it's with us in our bodies, in where we live. It is with us, right? In our day-to-day interaction. Yes, that's true. But we cannot base our decisions based on the past. We have to base our decisions based on the present, on the future. You almost have to say, I think I have to tell every South African to think about it in your personal life, right? In your personal life, a lot of horrible things happen to you. You can sit in a corner and say, man, my father quit on me, and all of the things that happened to me. I'm sitting in my corner. I'm not moving.
I'm giving up.
Yeah. So it's the same if we say apartheid. We like that individual who says, you know what? I've had a very, very bad, I grew up in informal settlement. Things were very tough. I'm not going to do anything. I'm waiting for somebody to come and help me here. Then you are going to be left behind forever. Countries are the same. And so countries are like individuals and communities are like individuals. So we almost look at the country and as the black community as an individual. We can't sit in our corner and cry apartheid. The world moves on, and we have to move on. So what we need to do is, yes, we acknowledge the past, and we acknowledge the past hurt us, the past was terrible to us, but we're in the present now. Then we have to say we've gotten the cards, the life cards. What do we do with it?
Yes.
How do we now advance? How do we move forward, and as quickly as possible? And how do we get the leaders that can do us that? And sometimes we may have to, in order to help to advance our own cause, we may have to use some of the people associated with our oppression in the past. Let me give you an example of that. Think of it, Japan. It was in the Second World War. It lost the war. The US destroyed them. You think about Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and so on. After the war, they actually partnered with the US that destroyed them to rebuild their country because they had an ambition. Their ambition was that within 30 years, they wanted to be at the same level and better than the US. They did it. And they did it with the US's help. Think of Vietnam. I mean, we grew up with
the movies.
The movies and so on. And as the US destroyed it, Vietnam rebuilt with the US, and Vietnam is now one of the fastest growing economies in the world. So
it's possible.
Yeah, even think about Israel, for example, at the same time, is. But people may not understand that after the Second World War, that first couple of decades, their growth was fueled by getting money and resources from Germany. Now think about what Germany did to them, to the Jewish Germans, the Holocaust. They accepted the money and resources to build Israel.
And they've built a very strong country. Some of the best military in the world. Let's before we go there to who can possibly help us, I want to stick around the voters for a second and say we also have a generation of people who know nothing about apartheid.
Yeah.
And they are of voting age now.
Yeah.
But they have a very different problem. Yeah. They're not interested.
Absolutely.
How do we then turn them around? Because if there's going to be a solution at all, it probably lies with them.
Absolutely. I mean, if we think about our country, because we're a developing country, so we've got a developing country with a special demographics. The young people are actually the majority. So if the young people vote for one party, their party wins.
Absolutely. If they all go to vote.
Yeah, if they all go.
Because they will waste time and not do it.
You see, across our society, it is unfortunately just in the black communities, right, in the white community. In the black community, people, right, they would rather, let's say they voted for a party, the initial vote. The party doesn't deliver. Then they say, you know what, I'm not voting.
Yes.
I'm going to sit at home. I'm not voting. and that is for one of the reasons I was saying is that people cannot make the jump from the party that they voted for at the beginning. Now to say, my party hasn't delivered. I'm going to try something so different. And that they can't make that psychological barrier.
So
but
that leap is hard.
It's a very hard one. But it's a one that's collectively we need to make it in order to get what we want, to get the jobs, to get the poverty reduction and to get the prosperity. That's a difficult thing, but we need to do it. But then also there's some people who think because of where we come as a culture, we're a protest culture. I mean, that's we grew up during the apartheid with no democracy. How do we get our voice heard?
Yeah.
We protested, and we did it for almost 100 years. So it's part of our culture.
That's what we do.
Our political
we
culture.
toy.
Yeah. So people still think the toy and the protest thing is a stronger statement than voting. So we need to deal with that also.
Ooh. We think the picket lines will get better results because that's what we did for many, many, many years.
Absolutely, because again, it's in our culture. So there's a lot of things that we have to get out of our political culture in order to get the better life that we want.
Here's another one. And because when we're talking about a changing South Africa, we can't ignore the players in the game, which is the ANC in this regard. And that's our conversation. Is there still room for ANC to do better, considering that the voter is likely to vote for them?
Yeah.
Is there still room for a better ANC that delivers?
Yeah. So let me just say historical because I'm academic. I can always go escape into history.
Yes. And learn from it and teach us from it.
And learn from it. In Africa, since 1847, and I'm going to repeat this 1847 so that people just can see, because the way when we blame colonialism and apartheid and so on, to think about it for 200 years, there are African countries who still saying the same thing, and that we may go on for the next 100 year plus and still have the same conversation, right? Them still blaming, money will be moving. But in the African context, no liberation movement or independence movement in government has ever changed. I mean, in the African context, since 1847, no liberation movement or independence movement has changed in government. So everything has just gone downhill and there was no return to chaos. When I say downhill, it ends in civil war. Sometimes.
Yeah. Fighting for the remaining crumbs.
Exactly. Yeah. Like in Algeria, for example. Or it is dictatorship. Zimbabwe, for example, or even worse, military rule, right? Yeah. Because there's no way out. Now the liberation movement doesn't want to lose control. So then the military steps in. Yeah. That is the end game. So I think every black South African must understand that no liberation movement has changed and no one has actually gotten better also. So first, no party, liberation movement, independence movement has changed in power. They're unable to renew, but they also have been unable to deliver. It's gotten worse every year, every cycle. It's a very important thing that people must understand. There are parties, liberation movements that changed, but they only changed when they were out of power. And then when they were out of power, they had all of the infighting. They renewed. They got whole new leaders, a new generation, and they actually returned. Even in Cape Verde, for example, the PIGC, they actually out of power. Then they came back and they were clean. So clean that they delivered. They didn't deliver before, but they delivered.
When they came back.
And then the president actually got the Mo Ibrahim Award for Best President. Think about it, from Zuma type of total corruption to the other side. But only you need to be humbled. But a lot of liberation movements, obviously, once they're out of power, they did. Like in Malawi and Zambia.
Yes,
they totally they're done. We never heard of them again.
What informs the liberation movement's inability to do right? Because they understand the problems probably better than anybody. Yeah. That's just why they formed the liberation movement in the first place. Yeah. The formation of Mkhonto Wesizwe, not the party, the arms wing of the ANC, was formed out of need, not out of boredom. Yeah. It was, we need to fight this thing head on. We need to carry arms. Yeah. So there's a lot that has happened that informs a better
Yeah.
political party because they know the plight of the people that they fought for. They lost their own people. Nelson Mandela didn't bury people in his life while he was in prison, and many other sacrifices. You would expect them to deliver with ease.
Yeah.
What does history tell us?
What history tells us is that a liberation movement is set up to oppose. Then you get into a culture of opposing. So you protest, you oppose. And if you in a liberation movement, it's like in any organization, you get into a culture. You create a culture of oppose. Now, in a liberation movement, also rewards in that culture, organizational culture. You rise to the top if you do a couple of things. If you are the most radical, so the most violent, and so on. Then you're at the top and so on. That's why we still see why people still vote for those type of people. So that's the culture. Now, once you get into government, right, in government, you don't want the people who break down, because liberation movements are also, when you oppose, you also break down. You need to break, because you want to break
through.
You want to break down the colonial government, the party government. Now, the liberation movements can't make that shift from an opposition liberation movement into government, because you need a whole new set of skills. You need builders, you need boring people.
Yes.
In fact, you need absolutely boring people. You need people who can build institutions, people who've run things before, people who've run spaza stores before, people who run taxi business before.
That's it.
That's what you now need. Now you have got people who never done that before, who actually, in order to be successful as a liberation movement, you need to break. You need to break the colonial institutions.
Yes.
You need to defy the colonial laws and the apartheid laws. But now how do you then you build a culture? It's not only the leaders, but the supporters, the members. Then the whole opposition society now has a culture of opposition, a culture of protest, a culture of breaking down, a culture of burning, a culture of defying the law. Now comes the liberation movement in. Now you have to change all of that. And now you have to say,
we deliver.
People, we now need to follow rules. You can't walk there and switch your radio on very, very loud. And so on. You now have to respect others. You can't protest and burn down the library.
Yes, that you need.
Yeah. And so on. And then and in order to change the culture, you have to be hard. If somebody does wrong, you now need to deal with that person, even if it's your own leaders and your own comrades. Now, once you don't do that, you then fall into a negative loop. And then the other part of it, often the sad part of it, of these, your liberation leaders and veterans, because they say, well, we've sacrificed. Now we need to eat. It's our time.
So that exists.
Yeah, it's a big part of it. Yeah. And not only that, and then what they do is they say, now, what the ANC did, it came to power, and then he said, you know what, we need to control everything. I mean, we need to control the state, sports, society, business, everything. This is a national democratic revolution.
Law,
everything.
You name it, yes.
But and the way to control it, we need to get our people there.
Of course.
And what is our people? It's not all black people, only people that in their
inner circle.
The inner circle. Now you think about it, now it gets into all facets of society, all structures, all institutions, soccer, whatever. Now the problem is you get these people who've never run something now going to run sophisticated places, football, National Soccer Federation, ESCOM, and so on. Now and they run it, they've never done it before, and then they only employ their kind of people. So in a sense, now this is how liberation movement works. Now the thing is about institutions, and the same as infrastructure. Once you destroy it, it's very difficult to return it back. ESCOM is one example. So when it was destroyed during those the Gupta years and so on, and an institution like that, sophisticated institution, it takes almost 20 years to return back to where it was before. And that is maybe what ordinary black South Africans do not understand.
Yeah.
So any institution that you break through corruption or incompetence, lack of maintenance and so on, 10, 20 years, and it's not even guaranteed that you can
it'll go back.
Only
Yes.
if you bring in total outsiders. Now, I must give you some success. There was one success.
A South African success?
No.
Oh, boy.
There was outside. Singapore was the People's Action Party. For me, the most successful independence movement in history, in modern history. What they did is, in order to circumvent this issue, is when they got into power, the first 5 years, they were also total chaotic. They could not make the transition. Also, they were like the ANC, like a ZANU-PF, but then they made one massive decision. I mean, it's a real decision. The leaders, they decided, look, you know what? You know, our National Executive Committee, top leaders, our parliament, our members of parliament, these people, you know, they sacrificed in the struggle. They did everything for the struggle, but they are not really kind of people who can turn around the country. I mean, they can't run this guy. You know, that's the reality. Let's do something. So what? You know what they did?
Yeah?
They fired half of the National Executive Committee.
Jeez.
One goes says, you know what? We're having a meeting to say, you sadly, you're a good comrade,
But
we understand the sacrifices you made, but you are just not competent.
and I will protest and say, but you understand, what am I getting for my sacrifice? Am I not right to even ask? Do I walk away with a golden handshake? I fought for liberation.
Exactly.
Yes.
But they actually, one girl fired, and they also did say like corrupt, incompetent, and so on. Fired. Now you have to imagine, like, let's say
Even a guy who hasn't done anything, because we think you might do something.
Think about the ANC's National Executive Committee right now, because they were meeting.
Yes,
they were
no,
meeting
this past
right
weekend.
Now, let's say now President Ramaphosa stands up and it says,
Sorry.
we've come here, we're unable to deliver, we don't have the capacity. You know, I've made a list, say there's 100 NEC members, I've made a list, 60 of you are so useless.
Me included.
60 of you are so useless, you're out today. Fired. So that is what they did.
Highly unlikely, you realize
Yeah,
that.
but I'm just saying, I mean, this is what they did.
Okay, let's
In Singapore.
take that same scenario and apply it here
Yeah,
for
yeah,
1
yeah.
second, as you were doing. Immediately they would say, you're crazy. Already, rumors of him being ousted are already, doing the rounds. And he's saying, like, if you want me to go, tell me to my face. Don't talk behind my back. You see,
But a better strategy for him should have been to say, I'm firing you. There's a reason to fire. This is actually what happens in Singapore. Now, of course, there was a revolt. The same
Naturally,
thing is-
there would be.
You know, the struggle, the comrades were saying in Singapore, no. They actually set up their own political party. They first tried to get a leader. Then they set up alternative political party. But, you know, back on this thing, just one part of the Singapore story. So the second thing after now firing just over half of people, like total leaders, just the top leaders. They decided to recruit a foreign firm, a British HR firm, a recruitment firm.
Wow.
Call them to Singapore. Says, we're giving you the tender. We're giving you a tender.
Start with the specifications.
Yeah, to say, now we need to recruit NSC members. We need to recruit members of parliament, but we want people who are not members of our parliament. We are going to make a public call for nominations. You're going to run it. We're going to stand away from it. And then they did it. They did it, and these people were appointed to the National Executive Committee and as members of parliament, and that changed Singapore. That delivered Singapore.
Is it even possible? You sit back and wonder in our type of politics.
Yeah.
In our patronage type of politics.
But if it's not possible, then we have to say, well, then the ANC has to be out and we have to have new political parties, a new generation, fresh blood, and so on. But it's also, so let's that's the one way, that's the extreme way, right? They can do it. There's also another way. There's a middle way, and there's perhaps a third way, and I'll come back to the third way. So let's say a middle way. It's the Indian Congress Party that is also like the ANC. Now, I'm telling you, so if we look at the history of the Indian Congress Party in power from 1947, independence, to 1919, totally useless. Let's think about it. Okay, let's calculate. That's like 30 plus years.
Delivered nothing.
Delivered nothing, yeah. Delivered nothing, yeah. And even in India, they called it like Congress growth, like it's not happening. Like it's not happening, yeah. And then they just, against the Sisters Party, they go exactly the same policies, policies and politics, like nothing happened. Yeah.
And great policies, but no implementation. Yes.
In theory, everyone says great policies in theory.
Well,
but then what then happened, and that is sort of a second way of doing this potential renewal of the ANC. Right? Say if ANC called me now as an advisor to say, okay,
what do we do?
Yeah, what do we do? Yeah. So the Indian one is a middle way, and what they did was they went to recruit an outsider to lead the party.
Okay.
And they went to a guy, Manmohan Singh, who eventually became the prime minister. So he was not a member.
Just a guy living his life.
Like the academic. No, he was just not living. He was he came from a very small community in India, a Sikh community. It's really, really small, one of the minority groups. He left India and he came from a poor background. Got a scholarship and studied in Cambridge, did a master's and PhD, and then worked in Switzerland. And he was the secretary of the South Commission, which was set up by Julius Nyerere.
Okay.
And to come up with policies for the global South at the time. So he was out of India for quite a while, and he was not even ever been a member of the Congress Party. He came back initially. They offered him a job as a Reserve Bank governor because India's economy was. If you think about 1990 with the Indian Communist Party, it was like now, like our country is like terrible, man.
Yeah.
Like they don't have the capacity to turn around. At least they acknowledge they didn't have the capacity. They brought him in initially as a Reserve Bank governor, and then thereafter as a finance minister to fix the finances as an outsider, and then shockingly they make him prime minister.
Wow.
So it was a shock to the system, to the Congress
to have
Party.
an outsider.
Yeah, to the comrades, to their comrades. It's like, this guy. I mean, he's never been. We don't know him. And worse with him,
he didn't fight with us in the trenches.
All of those sort of things. And worse with him, it was also a different. Think about when I say different here. There's something if you want to thrive like the ANC and sadly also in the offspring of the ANC or the EFF, MK, you have to be a certain character to rise to the top. Of
course. We've seen
slogans and revolutionary and sort of kind of
there's an accent as well, a political
yes, yeah. You have to have this political speak and all those sort of things. Because and the sad part that kind of thing is actually counterproductive to delivery, and that's what people don't understand. If you have those kind of individuals, all good, but they cannot deliver. They are not builders. And that is why we get failure and so on. But back now to Singh. So he was totally different. And he was actually, even when he was speaking, and I can ask your listeners just to Google sort of him and the criticism. And he apparently he was a very soft-spoken person. And when he was speaking, people couldn't hear him in meetings. I was like, no, it's an NSC meeting. It would be soft and people have to bend down. And
we can't hear you, Mr. President.
I don't criticize him. This guy doesn't even speak like us. What's wrong with this guy? And the other thing with him is, so the Sikh community got us very cool. What is
I forget what it's called. Yes.
Yeah. And but anyway, he also was a believer in meditation. So he would sit. So there would be chaos in a meeting, or he would sit quietly and meditate.
Wow.
Now you think about the system now.
We need engagement. And this man, what is he doing?
And then he would just come out very sharp and say, this is what we're doing. This is what we're moving. I mean, the wonder with Singh, he turned around India. So the economic growth that we're now seeing, India, he actually laid the foundations of it. I mean, it was said that he brought almost 300,000 people out of poverty.
Jeez.
He dealt with He was rebuilding the institutions, strengthening democracy. And every move was absolutely criticized.
Amazing.
So that's a middle way. I mean, that's a sort of,
Yes, that is a middle way.
So, for example, the ANC may then say, well, let's get somebody else
let's go to some university and look for...
or whatever they want. That could be...
You do realize they're talking that language now? Whether secretly or openly, the whole Patrice Motsepe's theory seems to play in that way.
So that is the sort of that is the way they should be going. I mean, in 2017, the ANC had actually, because we're talking about renewal in 2017. There's been a long renewal that hasn't moved forward. In 2017,
it feels so long ago, but yet it's not.
I know, but in 2017, most people have forgotten. The ANC had a special conference called the Conference of the Party Veterans. I don't know. I don't even remember. You've forgotten about it. There was the height of Jacob Zuma.
Okay.
And then part of...
that's when there was chaos.
There was chaos,
yes.
So now part of the ANC wanted to get rid of Jacob Zuma. And that's when they wanted to get Ramaphosa in during that period. We almost forgotten that period.
Ramaphosa was he deputy? Yes, he was deputy.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. So they wanted to get him into the presidency. And at that moment, what then happened was even Jacob Zuma did not come to the conference. So they had to call it a special conference. And they could not call it an ANC conference. They actually asked me, they asked me, I did to do two things for them. Obviously, I was shocked. So I did two things. One, I wrote a document on renewal, giving the different examples of how you could renew. I mean, that's the extreme one is the Singapore one and then the Indian one, like the two options. Of what you could do, and so on. So I think if they actually want to renew either, they will only be able to renew once they're out of power. When they go into opposition, actually there will be like the Mauritius Labour Party. They have to go
out and then come back
and clean themselves up, get a new leadership. Or alternatives, they could go the Indian Congress route and say, you know what, we're going to risk it. We're appointing a person who's not part of the factions. Who is now going to take over. We're giving the person a mandate, but you have to give a person a mandate.
Of course. And support it. Yes. Because you can't just say you got it and then give him trouble after that.
I must actually make a comparison, as I say, because think about this when, let's say, other institutions, where there's a private company, when a private company is in distress, private companies or organizations, institutions, often what they do, I mean, not often, in most cases, they bring in a total outsider.
True.
And that total outsider cuts
everything,
trends, cuts and stuff, and to try to revive. And that's the same for political parties. And that's maybe what people don't understand. Political parties are also organizations. Now, if you want to clean up, you have to do the same. You have to cut and you have to bring outsiders in to try to do it.
You deal much closer with these organizations, specifically the ANC. Do you think that's where they've realized? Because remember, the fall of anything starts with you recognizing that we're struggling now. Or not. Because remember, there's also a possibility that you don't see your own failures at all. You don't recognize them. You think you're good. Where is the ANC state of mind in this regard?
I think they still think they're good. I mean, for example, if they say our policy is working, is this an implementation failure, then clearly there's a problem there because the policy is just terrible. I mean, the policies of the ANC, most of the critical policies, is not an implementation issue. It's the wrong policies.
Example?
For example, our foreign policy, I mean, I'm using foreign policy. Let's just take, a big issue. We're having an influx into our country of... Let's
illegal
say people from
foreign nationals.
Foreign nationals. Now, why do we have that? What is the ANC's policy? The ANC's policy says, let's support our brothers, our liberation movement brothers. Let's support Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Angola. Now, these leaders, they are destroying their countries.
And then people are going...
People have no option. ANC supported who in Sudan? The former dictator.
Yes.
Sudan crashed.
And Zimbabwe.
Now, where do people come? Then people come here. So how is that a good policy? How is that a good foreign policy? I mean, really, I mean, it's just
South Africa belongs to all who live in it. Don't forget. So everybody come through. Look at a plane that landed from Gaza, supposedly, and they just said, it's cool, man, let them come in.
Yeah. So as I'm saying, is our policy is so... It is. I think the ANC is not at the place where they understand that they are the problem. They're not there yet. So that means it's left up to the voters now to show them.
Is the ANC wrong to say we have taken, what is that mom that the president always speaks about? There's a name that he uses whenever he speaks about someone's life that has gotten better. They're saying they've taken someone's life from not having a pit toilet, rather not having a pit toilet, not having electricity, no running water, and so forth and so forth. No access to education and all those things. And they're saying in 30 years, we're able to turn the life of a black person from total poverty to free access to water, to resources, education. They have clinics now. This is a huge change in their lives. They have running toilets they never used to. Is there an argument to be made?
I think the argument
for
is
that?
no. I think this is wrong. I mean, in fact, the argument is untrue. Okay. Oh, it's totally untrue. Let's take with your education. I mean, all right, what is education? 4 months ago, statistics came up from the Department of Education. Says there are 500 government schools, and when I say government schools, these are black schools, with no mathematics. That don't give mathematics. Now, okay, the kids are in school, but you have no mathematics. If you don't have mathematics as a child, your life is gone. You're done for. How are you going to recover that? Is that delivering education? I mean,
we're teaching them other things.
But fundamentally, for an individual present in our time right now, if you want a black child, you want to give the black child something, you have to give that black child some grounding in mathematics. Another stats that came out of there, it was 2,500. Man, 2,500. It's so shocking. About black schools, no economics. Just think about it.
No basic demand and supply principles that are taught.
Like, absolutely.
Yes.
How do you navigate this world? It is as apartheid. So you've got to educate. Now you go to school, right? But you getting an education that makes you totally useless in this world.
Are you saying we've dumbed down the level of education?
No, all what we've done is we just changed the policies. Okay, exactly. You know what we say? We say, now end of apartheid. Now we come up with policies. Every child now is going to go to school. That's what we did.
Good policy in principle, isn't it?
But we did not change the education system. Let's go take any other country. Let's just take the Chinese. Or, the first thing that they decided when they decided to reform, they say, well, we need to get the education system right. So they say, well, what is meaning getting the education system? What does it mean? It doesn't mean you just go to school and
wake up every morning with the school uniform.
They says every child who arrive in, let's say, sub A. Okay, that's my what do you call it? Grade 1. Yeah,
yes.
no, grade 1. This, I'm still in sub A.
I'm sub A too. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's just say, grade 1. Their child, when their child finishes matric, that child must be at the same level or better than a child in America or in Germany. And every person who's teaching their child along the way, if they don't deliver that, they're fired, taken out of his job. So that is what it means to be, now they have delivered education.
Got you.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is what it means to deliver. We would talk about decolonize education.
But it is true. We're trying to decolonize.
Well, if you want to decolonize, that is what we need to do. We need to be like the Chinese. We say, okay, we're going to decolonize our education. First thing we need to do, that black child must be, when a black child is finished, must be at the same level as the German child, the American child, and now the Chinese child. That is decolonization almost immediately. Yeah. And that child must have that same quality education, the same quality mathematics or physics, that child can go anywhere in the world. That's what it means to decolonize it as a child. Then goes to another part of the world. Don't have to be in South Africa. The child this black child out of I don't know, the worst township can then go anywhere in the world and their child can
stand their ground.
And so on. And that is what decolonization means. I'll just give you even another example, and I don't want to overemphasize this point. I mean, Singapore was a British colony, and they focus on the education, and they realize also, look, for that country to get out of poverty and to describe their poverty at independence, 90% of every Singaporean lived in the informal settlement. Just to understand that. So to say, well,
that's extreme.
Yeah, now they have to know to decolonize now. And I said, well, education is one thing. They have to go all out. They have to empower their citizens. And they focus on mathematics, science, etc. Say, this is it. This is it. By the 1980s, Singaporean maths was taught in Britain as more advanced than British.
And the very colonial
that is
masters.
Decolonization. Yeah, we used to have debates on Western science, Western. I mean,
you know, I'm listening to you speak, and we're only focusing on education, because then it applies to all facets of our lives, to healthcare, and then the question that comes to mind is maybe we should bite this elephant one bite at a time. If we were to do that, where should we be starting? Yes, we are late. We are 30 years too late. But where should we be starting?
You know, we're late, but we're not too late. You know, because for me, there's the opportunity of.
I'll tell you why I say we are late, because we are not even aware that the train is leaving.
Yeah, we're not. That's
you see that?
I mean, for example, it's that's the same part. We are stuck in the 1960s and 1970s, and sadly, some of our young people who are activists are also now stuck like the old people. They're repeating like the old people. Well, let's give you an example in terms of, and I'm going to come to the point. What can we do?
Yeah.
We say we're a rich country, we've got minerals and so on. And many Africans say that even outside. No, we are not. Because the countries that have done well did it without minerals. I mean, Singapore, South Korea, don't have any minerals.
China.
Done it, yeah. And now, in this modern world, if you've got a science and if you've got a technology, you can create minerals. Botswana is an economic crisis. 2 months ago, they called an economic emergency because the country's economy crashed. Because diamonds, which they export, are now being made artificially.
For zero price.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost nothing.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is why De Beers is also in trouble.
Yeah. Yesterday, I was reading of research that came out of China, where they can extract critical minerals out of plants. What does it mean if we have physical critical minerals?
What
does it mean? Yeah.
Yes. That's crazy.
Yeah. And Western countries are now going into space because you can get minerals in space. We are still stuck on a debate about we've got minerals and we can move.
And they don't even belong to us.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And then maybe the last one just on food, because on the land we're talking about and so on. You know, the European Space Agency a couple of weeks ago announced that they made food out of pee and air and electricity in order to supply people, the astronauts that go into space. So because you don't need physical food.
Yes.
Now, you see the science, why the education, why the science is so important, why the technology is so important, why the education is so important. We are still debating the land in a traditional way. Where people are now saying, well, they go and do
we got other ways of doing this.
Yes. And that is why. So what do we do? The first thing is really we have to start on the education side. Yeah. I think what we need to do is immediately start on the education side. Call education an emergency, right? And black education as an emergency. And when we call it as an emergency, then we ring fences. And then what we need to do, we need to then have all of society approach to get education right, meaning we have to get parents in, we have to get communities in, we've got people in that have the skills at the time. They may not be parents, but to get involved, we have to get in the black schools. People have done well that came out of schools. We have to bring them in. We then also have to bring business in and so on. For example, we could say we've got a policy of black economic empowerment, but if business adopt these schools, when I say adopt these schools, I mean in a proper way. So, for example, in India, companies have adopted school, tech companies. When I say adopt, you pay the salaries. The company pay the salaries of the teachers, and you pay a grant to the kids in the school. And that becomes black economic empowerment. And you bring in the teachers. You bring in everything. And many, many countries have done that.
It becomes an extension of the company.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Even in the US, for example, I mean, it's the same, you know, the JP Morgan CEO, Diamond, Jamie, he's involved, for example, in some of the poor schools in the US. And his argument is also, even in the US, where they don't have our kind of big issues of how business should just take over schools in critical areas and so on. And so that's what we need to do. And then we have to say, well, what kind of education must a black child have? Do we say, all right, a black child, if you want to be decolonized, if you want to be competitive, we have to give you an education that is not only going to be in South Africa, but that education will take you anywhere in the world. So then you don't have to worry about a job. You don't find a job here. You've got an education that you can go anywhere. You can go to Saudi Arabia, you can go to China, and you can go work there. So that's the education we deliver. We have to deliver world-class education. Like the Chinese, the Chinese, the Singaporeans, the South Koreans. We have to. So we almost have to say, let's put everything into that. So let's take the tools that we've already got. We've got BE policies already. So we say from now on we cancel the way it is done now, and we all focus it onto black education at all levels.
We have failed, and it's so sad because the statement that talks about the resources, we found the meal already cooked. Yeah. Like we found a country that had working roads and working trains and working power stations. Yes, they were not meant to carry the load, but they were there. So all we had to do was just add extra elements to the meal. And right now, using that analogy of the food, it's almost finished.
It's almost finished. Yeah, but it's almost finished. But the beauty, though, is there's so many opportunities still.
Okay.
That is, yes, you know, we've missed the train, essentially. I mean, we've missed the train. But, you know, there's another train
There's another one coming.
Hopefully. You know, the track has not derailed. There are no squatters on the track. So
we can still catch
we can still, you know, we're late in the day, but there are some low-hanging fruits. There's some catalytic things we can focus on.
But are we aware of that?
Well,
because having the train coming is one thing, but being aware that it's coming.
No, I don't think the ANC.
And are we acting like we are aware?
No, unfortunately, within the ANC, because that's still our dominant party. You know, it's still the animal in the room, but we still need to engage with it. I don't think they're aware. Number one, and that's maybe is a heartbreaking thing. Yeah. And then maybe also many of black society, of the people that could influence the ANC are also not aware, and so on. And then the third part of it is many people, they are aware, but then they want to use tools that don't work. Tools that have failed in elsewhere. Why do I say tools that have failed? I mean, if you look at our public debate on economics and even on politics, a lot of people say, well, let's do what other African countries have done. Now, I've just given you a statistic that out of the 55 African countries since 1847,
49 are still bad.
They are totally
like
bad.
Nothing happened.
Nothing has happened. They're poorer than they were. Now, why do we want to copy their policies? I think it's good. We want to do land reform to say we're going to go Zimbabwe land reform. All the Zimbabweans are sitting in South Africa. Hello. Yeah. If the land reform policies work, why are they here? You know, so illogical because we sort of ideological. We don't go somewhere else and say, you know, other people did land reform. Let's go and look. They're successful. There are many others who've done successful. We don't do that. So sadly, so in our public debate, and because we also have to engage in our public debate, unfortunately, also there's a poverty of ideas in our public debate, where people are saying the same slogans, even non-ANC people. So it's not just the ANC, but, it's like in black society, we're saying the same old stuff that doesn't work. The Chinese are focusing on technology.
There's no slogan.
Things. They're sending people to space. We are still stuck on slogans. We're like almost the only country in the world of our equivalent where we have the mass intelligentsia are focusing on policy proposals and ideas that have failed in every other country.
Do you... I'm listening to you speak and I say, somebody must win from the chaos.
Yes. Yeah.
In any chaos.
Yeah.
That's why they say there's always the richest guy even in the poorest place.
Totally.
Somebody must be winning. Yeah. Who's winning in this?
A lot of people are winning in this, and that's a heartbreaking it. I mean, so many people. So it's the elite in the ANC, your BE tycoons, they're winning. So some white, sort of big business who partner with the ANC elite, they are winning.
Or gave them something.
Yeah, they are winning. So we're a small group of both black and white. It's not just the blacks who are winning, but the whites also winning.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a group of these, they are winning in chaos. And that's a problem, and so on. And unfortunately, what people don't understand, you can win in chaos, but you can only win in the short term. Of course, you can move your money out of the country offshore.
Yeah. Or you can move.
Or you can move out of the country. And sadly, that's what a lot of people do. I mean, a lot of black BE tycoons, they've moved abroad. I don't know if
they're not even here anymore.
No. So many lives in the US. And many have moved their money out.
And these are familiar names.
Exactly. I don't know whether people know this.
We don't.
Yeah.
We think they're with us here struggling with load shedding.
No, we're outside here. But the problem is in terms of, it is, as black society, there's a couple of conversations we have to have with ourselves as a community. I mean, I don't want to make it a racial issue, and I don't want to make it an ethnic issue as us as black South Africans versus white South Africans. I'm not in that kind of politics, but the reality is, as a community, we have to have a conversation with ourselves.
And be honest.
We have to be honest. Yeah, we have to say, honest, what kind of leadership do we value?
Yeah.
First
and
thing,
do we have that?
And do we have that, yeah. The second thing we have to say to ourselves, I mean, we can blame the past, and we are right if we blame the past, but is it going to take us anywhere? We have to have that conversation. The third one, we have to have a conversation to say, look, what are the things that we are doing wrong here? Because let's say we've got the best policies in the world and finally we got a good government.
They say our constitution is the best in the world.
Let's say all of those things. Yeah, now we're moving. We think we're moving. But it's not just policies, but now we need discipline as a society. Societies can't progress unless there's also discipline. So you need good policies, you get good leaders, but then the other missing part is discipline in society. What do I mean by discipline? Discipline is we have to value the life of other blacks.
Yes.
We can't, we outrage when a white person attack a black person, but we're not outraged when a black person attack another black person. Like we outrage even if, for example, about atrocities against black people, Africans outside South Africa, if it's done by whites.
Or the people in Gaza.
Yeah.
We are outraged.
But we're not outraged in Sudan, for example, when it's black on black. We're not outraged.
Or outraged here.
And yeah, at home here. So we have to say, what is our value base now? How do we...
Have we changed over time? Because I think there was a time when things like that would bother us. When your neighbor was in trouble, the whole neighborhood was in trouble.
I think it has changed, and it has changed, sadly, it has changed in the post-1994 period. I think it has changed. It has changed for a number of reasons, because what has happened was, you have to think about it in 1994, and I was so happy. I was a reporter at the time, South African Star. As it comes to power, people were poor. We were all poor. We were totally poor. Yeah,
the rich were very few amongst us. Some were living in camps
and came from exile.
Exactly.
And then overnight, everyone got into power. Right, overnight. No, you've never had a job before.
Sure.
Like a Jacob Zuma, like a salary there. Now you get a humongous amount of money.
There's MEC in KZN.
In government house. They deliver you a car, you may have to learn how to drive.
You have protection.
You got protection and so on. overnight, right? Overnight. So suddenly you had in black society where we all were almost semi-equal. Yeah, in your party, we were all struggling. There were a couple of people who were doing well, but the rest we were all struggling to make ends meet. Somebody is suffering, we all contribute, and so on. So that was a communal way of doing things, because we were all suffering together.
We're all the same.
But now suddenly there was now a change. We got one group among blacks who are now moving. And now they're only a point among themselves. All right. They're living to black. So it's not based on their capabilities, on their merit. The only reason why you're in the in crowd, you're in a circle of the ANC, that's the only reason. Yes. And you'll get all the top job, all the money, and the rest are left out. And so now that changed. So even, let's say that they'd only done that, but then they did something else, which from a values point of view, so the people now, the new ANC people now, the new elite now they're in. So Wabenzis, they're now in government and are driving. Now they buy, they stop the cars, the stuff, they move out of the town. So, but now they begin to live a different life also. There's now the bling life. You go shop abroad, you do the thing. So, and so on. So that happens now. So it begins now to change the values of society.
And that becomes a new culture.
It becomes a new culture.
Yes.
It becomes a new culture. That's sort of the but so what we then did is among black community, what we did, we destroy the idea of, or maybe 3 ideas that's important to build a society out of conflict. The one is what makes societies turn around, the idea of merit, that when you're capable in a society, you are supported, you are valued, and whether it's you're starting a business and encouraged.
Yes.
But now you don't need that, because all you need is now you need to be connected to the ANC. So if you're black and you're capable but you're not connected, you will flounder in society. So we broke that fundamental. That is why China's success is actually once they introduce merit in the public service and in their private sector, it changed their society. So it's not party merit, struggle credentials and so on. So we broke that. The second thing that we broke almost immediately was, in a society to work, everyone must follow the rules. Everyone. So what we did is, like other liberation movements, the leaders are exempted from the rules. So if you are Jacob Zuma, you're the president, or anyone else, or a leader, you can do
Commission is showing us.
Yeah, you can do whatever you do because of your struggle credentials protect you. But they say, but he's a comrade.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So then we broke that. So we break a golden rule in a society. To build a healthy society, it's very important that everyone is treated equally in a society, and so on. So we get those rules. And that is also, again, if I take you where it's China or where it's Singapore or where it's Japan, is the idea of, even if you are very rich, or even if you're a top-notch party leader, the rules, the certain rules that you apply. So once you break dead rules, then everyone that comes thereafter, you break the rules. And then perhaps, then what we also did was we broke something, the idea that, well, for everything that go wrong, we can just blame the past. We can blame the whites. I mean, like say Jacob Zuma, he built in Kantla. I mean, this is 280 million. I think about it, the most expensive house in the country on state payers, on taxpayers' money, or public money. I mean, how wrong is that? Yeah. If you cannot see that it's wrong, it's so wrong.
He needed a fire pool.
Yeah, but then he said, oh yeah, but P.W. Botha had a place in George, but P.W. Botha had a 280 million. So once you exempt wrong behavior in society based on, oh yeah, but the whites.
Whataboutism.
The whataboutism, yeah. Yes. So we introduce whataboutism. So in a society cannot function on whataboutism. You have to, a society must draw a line to say, yes, all horrible things happen, and the whites were terrible and bad, and apartheid was bad, but these are the rules now. You can't use that as an excuse to build a society. So we did that.
But right now we are in this.
We are in that. Yeah.
And it's common now. It's natural. Because if you look at what's going on with the Madlanga Commission, you realize how deeply rooted the culture of corruption and impunity and we can do whatever we want is. Having watched some of it, what is your observation?
I mean, it's for me, it's frightening. The sad part of it, though, I must tell you, if you were a political journalist or investigative journalist last 10, 20 years and an analyst, just Google and see lots of black analysts and political columnists, including myself, we've said these things are happening. But because the ANC was so big and so powerful, we just dismissed. Now, for the first time, the good thing is now for the first time, these things are public. But it's been said already.
For many years.
For many years.
Yes.
And there's some very courageous black journalists.
Even Tlantam Konazi said something long before the famous Sunday morning speech.
Absolutely. So we've been saying that, but when you said that in the past, I remember you're a coconut.
A clever black.
You're a clever black. And so now it is out into the public, which is a good thing. I mean, that's, this Madlanga Commission, I think, in a way, one has to, it's Makonazi, this was an absolutely courageous thing to do because the difference in this commission, which is different from the other commissions, I think this commission is like our black swan. There's a philosophy or a theory of the black swan, like something happens that we don't expect, but the impact is so massive. So this is one of those, because what is different with this one is that now we have a person who's actually a senior police person who is coming with the evidence. Now, in other commissions, we had low-level people, in
whistleblowers,
and so on, and so on. Without, they had evidence, but it could be disputed. Here we have officials in the state, the police, with evidence, and not only with evidence, but they're standing firm. They're standing firm in the public and they say, this is what has happened. In the past, we didn't have this type of people coming out because people were too frightened because the ANC would have destroyed, they know the ANC would have destroyed him, even for Makonazi. If he didn't come out, he would have been totally destroyed. But I think by the ANC.
Looking at where we are now, the ANCs came out announcing very recently that they'll set aside in inverted commas, because I'm sure I'm using the wrong phrasing, the Mkunu, Senzo Mkunu, as an active member of the NEC. And isn't that the step in the right direction? Or the steps should be arrests and convictions and so forth?
I think the steps has to be hard. I mean, that is like a little slip in the wrist.
Sit this one out.
Yes, sit this one out. Yeah, no, we don't. We need to move. So, just coming back on the Madlanga Commissioner, I think maybe for me the most scary part. You asked me what, during the Zuma years and those sort of years, it was state capture by dodgy business people, right? Now we have moved since then to state capture by criminals. There's like mafia state, and that's a difference. Where criminals are taking over BEE, they're taking over procurement and so on. So that's what's happening. So that's totally different. So I think maybe that's a frightening part for if you're an ordinary citizen to see that. I think if it's business capture, maybe psychologically people think differently about business capture. We need to deal with the business people, but business people are, then some people say, well, they're in the corruption and so on, but once the criminals take control, it's a total different story. So I think this is what is coming out.
When guns are used to get tenders.
Yes, so that's where we are. And that's the sad part, because we didn't deal with that business corruption of political business
Do we suffer from the state capture, or the last 20, 30 years of impunity, the last 20 years of no punishment? Yeah. Surely we must be suffering it now.
Yes, absolutely. That's impunity. We're suffering from impunity. Yeah. When I said earlier on, and to build a society, and to rebuild a society, you have to have a culture of accountability. Mm-hmm. Once you allow certain people to get away with things, that creates then a new culture.
True.
So you get away with it. And so this is what has happened now. So initially what we allowed, initially it started off all with two things for me, and having been a witness from the beginning when it was introduced, is when the cadre deployments And the cadre deployment of the ANC, the idea was they have to get their people in government, in other parts of society, to push for a transformation in their kind of, because there's different ways of transformation, but their ideological way of transformation. And I must tell you, at the time, I thought it was a good thing. I mean, 94,
it sounds
95,
like a good thing.
Yeah, to say, well, the whites are going to be resistant, they're going to be power. Now, it sounds a very good thing. Even when I go back to the columns, I had a column in the Star, I agreed with, yes, let's do it.
Until it doesn't work.
But, okay, but then what they did was they then deployed only their people, but not just only their people. If their people were like the top competent people, maybe that would have been different. But then the people who have never done anything who destroyed it, the institutions that they touch. And then this thing about that you can do whatever you do when you deploy it because you'll be protected because you're a cadre.
True.
And then that breaking up the rules are allowed. And then it begins in the ANC, but then it begins in society. Right, begin society. And if you are an outsider outside of the elite and you want to get in, you then need to pay a bribe or you need to do something. Or you need to associate with the ANC.
For you to get a permission to enter into the VIP area.
Totally. Then that creates a culture of bribery and corruption in wider society because you now know. And so even if you're then an ordinary civil servant, the people at the top are creaming it. You are working very hard, they're creaming it at the top, and then above you, people are parachuted in as deployees who do nothing, and they cannot be fired, and so on. And then it's like, why should I be working?
True. And then we observing all of that as ordinary citizens.
Yeah. So that's
we also become part of it. It's like, why should I obey the rules if everybody else is not?
Yeah, because somebody with a blue light drive past you and so on. Say, but hello, I mean, I'm on my way to work. I now have to slow down
and let them pass.
What is so that is actually how a society, the good culture, the discipline of society breaks down, lack of accountability developed, impunity, and so on. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult to do a culture change. It's very difficult, even in a organization. When you have but then you have to think about a wider society. But there's the beauty of democracy. You can do that in a democracy. But you can only do it in a democracy if two things happen. If a whole new party takes control. Because the old party is, like the ANC, is so stuck in this loop, negative loop, you have to get something totally different.
Is the DA the new party in this context? Because they also carry their own baggage.
No, everyone gets to carry their own political parties. I mean, the best scenario for all of us would be in terms of, can we have a whole new type of parties, which is not part of the old parties.
But they're all coming.
They're all coming. But
is Floyd an example? Or is carrying a baggage?
No, he's carrying the baggage. Maybe we have to get new.
Malema is carrying a baggage. I would say,
for example, let's say like parties like a Rise Mzansi type of party, right? These are
people who are not in politics.
They were not in politics.
However, one can argue that who funds them is carrying a baggage.
Well, yes, but the reasons for me the importance of those type of parties is that they break the culture of the ANC light type of.
Okay.
Because we need to get out of the ANC and out of ANC-like parties.
Are you saying the likes of Action SA with Mashaba?
Even the likes of, So those type of parties. But unfortunately, our voters are not ready for those type of parties. Our voters are still voting on the ANC-light. You need an ANC type of person, an ANC-light. Not understanding. Yes, you can continue. Everyone's democratic right to vote that way, but then it's going to go downwards. You're never going to get that job. You're always going to be poverty and so on. So we need a psychological break to get new type of people. It's we started off to say, black society now, we now need boring people to lead them.
People who just do the work.
Yeah, people who do the work. So those are different. So it's like a sea change. You need to vote for someone who has run something outside politics, outside the trade union movement also, because our boss was a trade union. He was not in a normal, the same with Greta Mentas. So somebody who successfully runs something outside politics and outside the state, who is not going to sing, who's not going to tell you what you want to hear, who's not going to blame.
Doesn't know a single struggle song.
Absolutely, doesn't know a singer who would like stumble, like, what are you saying? So those are the type of people. I mean, I made an example, this is a couple of years ago, of Angela Merkel. When she became the chancellor in Germany. I mean, she was seen as an absolutely boring person, but a very, very effective leader because, she got in there. When she was elected, there's certain things as, rules to society. You bring new rules, proper rules, get the economy going, do all of the stuff in a boring way. There's no exciting. But I mean, the other thing, of course, that those type of leaders need is compassion.
Yes.
Because you cannot be a leader in South Africa without compassion. You have to feel for people. You have to feel, and you have to be with people. I mean, what we're missing now, even with President Ramaphosa, you get a sense also, I mean, he's not feeling the people's pain. He's not feeling.
He's just feeling that the price of electricity is expensive, Mr. President.
Absolutely. Understand, somebody get murdered. It's not a feeling of what it. Your loved one just got murdered.
True.
There's no understanding that lack of rule of law, how it feels, is the impact on families and so on. So there's no feeling of that. Or, your taxi mafias. Or kill, let's say, an Uber driver or and so on. Or, I mean, I've got a distressing story that somebody came to me and asked for help, was that apparently in Limpopo on the main roads where if the taxi mafias will stop you and say, who is in the car here? Are you a taxi? And then you get a fine. I mean, how's that?
Wow. That's extortion. That's
extortion,
very bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the point is you have to have leaders, political leaders, who feel with people that way.
Yeah.
So if something happens, that the leader
Do we have
goes
that, though?
and feel.
Here's something.
Yeah.
The word leader keeps coming up. Leader with one person, singular. And the history of the world tends to work that way, where it identifies a leader, a savior. The religion does the same. It speaks of the one man that will save all of us. And you find that in almost all religions, and you equally find it in politics, definitely, where there's that one guy, there's that one. Are we also suffering from the syndrome of the one leader will save us, the savior syndrome? Because we had a Mandela we were waiting for. And when we were young, release Mandela was the notion. He will come and he will solve all these problems. And we carry on to do that in church. That's why you have charismatic priests who are the ones that are above, and they will bring you that solution to your problem. We do that with traditional healers, where they will bring you the solution to your problem. Are we carrying that burden of the problems that I have are not for me to solve, but for a savior to help me with?
I mean, that for me is a heartbreaking. You're right. And for me, that's so heartbreaking. That is, we are looking for saviors. We're looking for Jesus in all facets of our life, but particularly in politics. So two things that we need. Of course, we need good leaders, but we need to redefine what we see as leaders, not only in politics, but across society. I mean, you were just saying the charismatic churches leaders. Is that leaders we want and need in the church, for example? So that's why we need to have that conversation. Is those the type of people in our society? Even with traditional leaders, we have to say to ourselves, I mean, are these the people?
Is this the guy?
Yeah.
Are we all sure this is the guy?
Yeah. These are different conversations. But the thing is, because when you blame apartheid all the time, you can't have these honest discussions because there's something else to blame.
True.
That's the same difficulty.
You're not pointing the finger at yourself.
So we have to do self-introspection as a black community to say, I mean, is this type of leaders we have? Is a Malema or a Floyd or Jacob Zuma, are those the type of leaders that we think are leaders?
Yeah. And when we ask that question, in answering it, we need to determine the criteria that we measure them by.
Yeah.
And if they don't meet it, then they're not the right people.
And then also we have to say at the same time as we look for leaders, we also need to get our own agency right in terms of, at the end of the day, yes, good leaders, but we also need agency, our own agency as an individual. We all have agency. And I know it's very difficult. I mean, if you sit there unemployed, you'll be unemployed for 20 years. You're sitting in a township, you can't move, you don't have the money. What unemployment does, it hurts you. Your agency breaks your agency.
It hurts every element of your life.
Yeah.
Yes.
And particularly in our context, if you were unemployed in the context of everyone is struggling. But now you're unemployed in the context of, your neighbor who were with you before is actually rich now because that neighbor is connected. There's the unfairness of that. And then you also think of whites who are also still well off.
True.
It brings a different anger. And that is in our society. But despite all of it, you still need your agency. And we still need to develop agency. And maybe what we need to do is potentially from a civil society point of view and young activists to create maybe a mass movement to get people's agency back. So we don't need to wait for politicians, political parties to do that. We can do social movements of healing to heal people.
Didn't we see that with the fees must fall type culture?
Yeah, but now we need to sift it out of the politics. That's good, but those type of movements, we must move it into non-politics.
And civil duty.
Civil duty. For example, we know corruption is an issue, then we have to have mass movements to change society's views on corruption, for example.
It's all good and well for us here to have this, slight academic chat about the societal issues of our country. But the reality remains the same.
Yeah.
And almost nothing is likely to happen. And that's the frustrating bit. And you hope and wonder, what do we do next?
Yeah.
Once we are done and we switch off this camera or you've been watching this video and you're done watching it, and then you go on and to watch something else and move on with your life. What do we do next is probably the biggest frustration for me.
Yeah, so I think every person who has the capability, and I know there are many people who are, they're so destitute. Of course, it's very, very difficult. But those who can, in their own sphere of influence, have to try. And I know a lot of people would say to me, well, why should I try? ANC people who are in government, they get all the money, they do nothing. It's their job to do it.
Yes.
They just
why should I clean my street?
Yeah,
there are people who are supposed to do it.
And do things, But even having said that, in our own spaces, if we try in our, because all of us has a sphere of influence. So in our sphere of influence, if we can do something. So almost like, can we get the non-state, non-politicians to do something more?
Yeah.
To help others. And it's a tough ask, obviously, because we've voted people in to do it.
And there's a budget.
And there's a budget.
You see where the difficulty comes, Prof.
Yeah, but also, my frustration is with our opposition parties also. I've been frustrated with them because in a society like this, you got a governing party where they're getting votes based on singing and based on blaming whites, blaming colonialism, blaming white monopoly capital while they're benefiting alone, and so on. And they stay in power. And so on. And they weaponize our differences, right, in our past in order to stay in power. Then you have opposition parties. What the opposition parties should do in a society like this, they should almost operate like they're the government. What do I mean by that? Is they must also go and do the services. Even if they're in opposition. For example, let's say in El Dorado Park, the gangsters are shooting people. I never see opposition parties being the first there, the first responders to help people, to be there, to fight the gangsters.
Got you.
I don't see that. Or the same with a taxi. Taxi mafias are treating passengers and they are killing people over routes. I don't see the opposition parties being there.
Are you saying this? Are you saying this because at their core, they are civil servants? So, at their core, they have a civil duty.
Yeah, because
they're trying to help society be better.
Totally, yeah. So in a developing country, opposition parties must play a different role. You can't be like in let's call it in a well-established democracy. So in our kind of country, you actually have to be in the community. Somebody cannot get ID, struggle with a bureaucracy. You're the opposition party. Go and help.
Yes.
And so on. Like now, for example, with Makonazi, I mean, he had to go public. Where were the opposition parties when he cried for help beforehand?
Yes. Actually, he went to Parliament and cried for help.
Yes. Why didn't the opposition parties immediately there call a press conference that first time we went there and say, we are supporting this man. He's crying out for help. He's got the evidence. So our opposition parties are not playing the role. They criticize some from Parliament, some from the outside, but they have to, to win people over. If you're in opposition, you must behave as if you're in government. So you have to behave like a government, even if you don't have the power. I think about Mandela, and I'm privileged that during that time, you can see him, I could see him in action. He was not in power between 1990 and 1994. It was the cleric was in control. But Mandela behaved as if he was the president. He would do things, there would be violence. He would be the first
to
speak. He would.
We all remember the famous Mandela speech when he says, "Go back to school and learn."
Yeah, he would go there
and leave politics to politicians. Yes.
Something happens to someone, he would be there with a family during massacres and so on. He would be there. He would be there, first responder, and so on. That is what opposition parties need to do now. And because they don't do that, Cyril Ramaphosa, despite the fact that he is failing, he still looks good.
Because the opposition doesn't do much.
Yeah, the opposition doesn't do much. Where is the opposition? The opposition was supposed to behave like a Cyril Ramaphosa in opposition to rival him. Let's say now on G20, where's our opposition leaders to say, no, this is how we should do this thing? They can have their own summit.
Let's have our own G20.
This is how we do these things.
Yes, of opposition parties.
Yeah, or let's say in our fight with the US and the ANC has, they came up with the wrong strategy with the US. What's wrong with the opposition going and say, well, it's the opposition parties in our interest to actually decide how to engage.
Do we find ourselves in a situation where the DAs being swallowed into the system as GNU is now lost that sharp bite? Because they used to have, and I don't know if they still do in some form, shadow ministers, which was government in waiting in inverted commas. They would have a shadow minister of this and this and that. And I don't know if they still do, but do we find ourselves in a situation where they've been muted slightly because they have to agree almost with most things, not everything, of course we know that, but most things that the ANC does?
The danger for the DA and the IFP is they're in the GNU with the ANC and they have to cooperate, but at the same time, the ANC is pushing the ANC's policies. Yes. Now, when the ANC pushes the ANC's policies, they get along and then they are tainted with the ANC. And that's the problem. So how do you govern in a coalition where the party with the most votes behave as that party is the majority? Yes. Because that's not how coalitions work. Effective coalitions around the world is that when you're in a coalition, you come together with new policies. You don't implement the policies of the party with the most votes. There's some people who think that's how coalitions work. No, it doesn't work that way. I mean, the whole point of a coalition is you then say, well, actually, you know what? Let's meet. Let's have a workshop. Let's come up with new policies. And that's
we're likely to find middle ground.
That's exactly.
We won't all going to win, but something is going to come out.
So, but the problem for the DA is now they are going along with the ANC, and the same with the IFP also.
Are they really going along, or they're saying
they're perceived to go along?
Because they're not as they don't oppose as much.
Yes, because now it's the challenge, because I know it's all new for this party. I mean, it's all new
for everyone.
GNU is new, and it's also new ways. It's also the challenge is the ANC is making it a challenge for the ANC's partners by behaving as if their policies becomes a policy of the GNU, which is nonsensical. I mean, it's illogical. No coalition anywhere in the world.
They call it, and I remember I told you this once when we met at an event. They call it ANC-led GNU.
Yeah, you can't. That's not how coalitions work.
Well, they contributed the biggest slice of this cake.
That's how it works. The challenge, if you did a partner in that kind of thing, the challenge then is you first you need to cooperate in a coalition, but then you also need to fight the ANC's policies. And so
But doesn't that
to try to get the balance right?
Doesn't
is
that
difficult,
delay
yeah.
delivery? Because we're
It
dealing
does,
with a very urgent body that
Totally.
needs immediate medical care.
Absolutely.
We don't have time to be discussing the solution.
Absolutely.
So what do we do
So
then?
that is what he does here. So essentially why we have paralysis in government, right? Because of that, it is this animal that the ANC that cannot move and cannot see sense beyond their sense.
Mm-hmm.
When you were asking at the beginning, does the ANC understand that it's on the wrong path? They don't. They see that they are right. They insist they are right, doing the same thing. But now the other parties are with them. Can't do much. So then what happens is what we're seeing is now is that individual ministers from the different parties are actually then focusing on their own areas and then they're delivering.
Yes.
So we don't have the coherence and and it's a slow move. That's where we are. Yeah.
Then that leads to a failure in the system. If there's no common, we're all not singing our songs,
Yeah, exactly.
and yet we call ourselves a choir.
Yeah, no, totally. So that's unfortunately why the GNU may actually fail based on that. It's just the one single thing is the culture of the ANC that they cannot see that is a
collective
multi-party, it's a collective now. You have
Yeah.
to see some of your policies to build a collective.
Do we have a strong enough opposition? And I used an oxymoron slightly. Bear with me. Strong opposition within the GNU to try to assert their power enough for their voice to be heard.
Well, so far we're not seeing it. So we've got two problems right now. I mean, first is the GNU partners are not fighting. I don't think they're opposing hard enough.
Yes.
Because they are still struggling with this concept.
With their own blue lights.
Yes.
I don't want to lose my blue lights.
Yes, they're not taking on the ANC hard enough. Yes, there was the budget where the DA took on and so on. So, but they're not doing.
There was
it
a
enough,
budget.
yeah.
There was the Bella
Yeah,
as well.
so, and so on.
Yes.
So that's the one side. And then the other side, the opposition outside, are also in chaos now. I mean, MK, former President Jacob Zuma, hire and fire people, appoint people.
But that's nothing new, though.
I know it's nothing new, but they are the main opposition, really official opposition.
Yes.
You are asking about shadow cabinet. Do they even have shadow cabinet ministers? They don't.
Oh,
Remember, they didn't even have a constitution. How the INC allowed them even to contest the election, I don't know. I mean, I just had a paper which they say, oh, well, this is the thing. But I mean, on a serious note, really our opposition is also now struggling. Because MK is the official opposition, and in our constitution, there's a place for official opposition,
True.
right?
Yeah.
And they have to hold the government
to
accountable.
account.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And then the EFF is now is the third, second biggest opposition party. They're also in chaos.
They don't look like they're in as much chaos as the
MK is
though.
even worse chaos.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
because they whether they're going to survive beyond Jacob Zuma. It's going to be very, very difficult. Yeah.
Oh.
So we don't have. So now we have a weak opposition, essentially a weak opposition right now, outside that GNU.
What do you say to the formation of the party that Floyd started? Is there room for parties like that? Because earlier you were speaking about these smaller parties, if they rise and become more powerful with time, they are the solution to our problems. Your Action SAs and Rise Mzansi. Surely the Maibuye movement is a part of that type of narrative.
I would say my advice to them is to say form coalitions with like-minded policies, because all of these parties have the same policies. That's the problem.
Similar, yes.
What is the difference between him and EFF and MK? Same policy. I mean, he wrote the EFF. So he wrote both the EFF and MK's policies. Why do you go form a new party? I mean, it should have been better if you formed an NGO, right? Because his views are represented in the EFF and MK.
Yeah.
So, and that's also our other problem. There are too many political parties.
Who wins with that?
Yeah,
the
it's
polarization
polarization.
of a black vote. Surely somebody is winning.
It's what the losers, I would rather say, is the vote. That's the black vote.
The black vote. Yeah.
They're the losers. So I would say to the Floyd and all of these people, you know what you do. If you are populist, you're on the left, just have a big gathering, all come together and form a big coalition. You know, there's also the Communist Party.
But they don't get along.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Not anymore.
I mean, you have to get along. I mean, none of these parties...
They're going to fight for positions.
I know, but none of these parties are ever going to become the governing party on their own. I mean, that's just a reality. Whoever thinks that they can be the governing party, I think they live in cloud cuckoo land.
But is it possible that they're happy running a small Mangaung province, or rather Mangaung, city, a municipality, and they have a $1 billion rands budget, and hey man, we're good.
Fine. And that's coming back, and that's our problem is if we're going to vote for people like Floyd's and even the Julius's and so on, and these new parties, people who need an income, they have no other income. So people set up political parties to get an income. That's a problem for a black voter. So, I mean, that's a really big problem. So, what we need to get black leaders in political parties where people who are leading these parties don't need an income from the states or politics.
We said that about Cyril Ramaphosa.
No, but Cyril Ramaphosa, he was a trade union. He did not. He got his BEE money. That's different. That's not an entrepreneur. That's not a business person.
But there was a moment in time when we said, he's a businessman. That's the guy.
Well, maybe some people will say, remember there was this campaign strategy.
Yes.
My thing was, even at that time, to say, it's BEE, you're getting a say in a company for free. How's that a business person? What skill set you have? That's not a business person.
Yes.
So you are linked.
I have shares.
Yeah, but you are linked, you are locked in. Because you didn't make your money independently. You are locked into the people who's giving you that money.
Yes.
And so on. So it is going to be important
for these to get together.
Yeah, so two things must happen. Firstly is just the black voters must not vote for people whose only job is to form a political party to get an income, even if you like the person. It's disastrous. It hasn't worked in other African countries since 1847. Like, how is this going to work miraculously now? It is so important, yeah? But the second thing is there's a reality also. Now we have these political parties. What do? These parties must actually join up and work together. They don't need to merge. We've actually, in our coalition culture, we're beginning to have a coalition culture.
We're kind of getting used to it.
Yeah, we have to get used to it. So for those parties, what they need to do, the South African Communist Party, because they're also not independent, they're in the same space as MK, they're the same space as Floyd, they're the same space as the EFF. They better form some kind of big coalition.
Who is funding these people? Do you know, I get shocked every time by the type of monies political parties have. It is the most shocking thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
having done some work with some of the small parties, I got shocked, eh?
Yeah.
They pay better than the ANC for that matter.
No, totally. For me, it's, funders, some people fund political parties because they say, well, it's an insurance policy, right? Even if some people fund political parties they don't agree with, but they say, if I fund the EFF or MK, they're not going to criticize me. They're going to leave me alone, right? Or in Parliament, they are going to fight for a policy which I want.
Exactly.
Or if there's a tender and there's a tender committee, they're going to fight for me, I'm going to get a tender. I mean, that is what has happened.
That is state capture.
Yeah, that is also state capture in a different way, yeah. I would say to the honest people who honestly want to support political parties, to rather support civil society, rather support the media, independent media, rather support community projects, youth projects, startups, and so on. Supporting those types of initiatives is much more important for our society, will build our society much better, not political parties.
Yeah, but business people, which are the ones that have money, will always want a return for their investment. That's the nature of business.
But the return of the investment by supporting independent media, by supporting civil society, and by supporting young black people with projects, with startup project, that return on that society,
it's amazing.
Man, it's massive. It's massive.
It leads to a much calmer, boring country.
Absolutely.
that just delivers for its people.
Yeah, it leads to a happy country, to a peaceful country, and to a country with reduced poverty and a country with more jobs.
Yeah. You and I can carry on until the cows come home. We'll have this again in a few more years. I always enjoy these chats. Thank you so much, Prof. It's really a pleasure. What are you up to lately?
Oh, what am I up to? Two things. A couple of years ago, I was asked by Sibanye Stillwater, the mine, to facilitate a healing process after Marikana.
Yes.
So I've worked on that, and then after that, I set up an institute. You were asking in terms of agency, what can we do in the non-state, which has been my thing since 1994 of, well, there's the government, there's the ANC, what can ordinary citizens do? And that's what I've been trying to do. So we set up, I've co-founded the Institute of Social Dialogue, what we do in mining communities. We build the capacity of mining communities. We get mining communities to sit down with mining companies and work out a development plan for the communities.
Yeah.
We know that, at a local level, municipalities are incapacitated, in crisis, so communities are not going to get any satisfaction from them. And often mining companies is the one big entity that provides the jobs and so on. The state at the national level is not delivering. It's not going to deliver soon. So our thing is, can we then sit with a mining company, with the local community and say, mining company, you have a responsibility. Community also has a responsibility, but can we work together and actually put together a plan for this community, a development plan, which sits outside politics and outside of state, because the reality is the local state has collapsed. We can march, the local community can march and march, nothing's going to happen because it has collapsed.
Yes, exactly.
So then we say, what else can we do? What is the agency?
And is it getting a positive reaction from the mine owners?
Yes, everything is, of course, you have to persuade people, and everything is a persuasion, and you have to show people, look, it is better that way for stability for our local communities.
Yeah.
If we can get young people involved and so on, if for example, if mining companies can support not political parties and political funding, but local initiatives, grassroots initiatives that are actually credible.
Sure.
And so that's been my project. And then the second project is I'm continuing with this non-political project, is political non-political project. Since I spoke to you, I chaired the negotiations to put together the multi-party charter and so on, which at the end, those members, DA, IFP, etc., joined the Government of National Unity, and then I advised them in those negotiations to form the Government of National Unity. I still do believe that between now and 2029, the opposition parties need to form a very big coalition, a big tent coalition. So if the ANC declines, which the ANC will, by 2029, can the opposition parties actually form a government?
Yes.
So that is a project that I'm working on. And it is not, I'm not a member of any of the political parties, but my own objective really is to say, as an outsider, to kind of help and encourage political parties, obviously, which I think is good for South Africa, that support the Constitution, support entrepreneurship, support rule of law, and so on, can get those parties all together, because many of these parties have the same policies. Get them all together.
Including the DA and the ANC.
There's
a lot of similarities.
Actually, and even parts of the ANC, we don't know what's going to happen with the ANC. Maybe this attempt of trying to get Ramaphosa out could actually break the ANC again.
I think so.
They could potentially, the Ramaphosa people could actually break away, potentially. And then maybe where would they then go? And if they can then go with the DA and the IFP and so on and form a coalition in 2029, that would be a good thing. But I'm also open to advice even to the populist parties.
You've consulted for the ANC in the past.
Yeah. And on the renewal,
Yes, but you're the first to criticize. Don't you feel conflicted sometimes?
No, I think in a society, it's very, very important in a developing society like our society that we have people, we use academia to provide advice, but also to criticize.
Yes.
That is very, very important. To come up with ideas, and if the ideas are rejected, to continue. To come up with ideas, and it will always be rejected. I mean, for many, many years, stuff that I came up with was rejected. I mean, people were not seeing it as acceptable at all. And some people were even, I mean, I had marches against me. People forget. In 1995, I had a march from the Library Gardens down with Gumede.
You made it in life.
I know.
You made it in
those
life.
days, like the ANC was like all powerful.
Yeah.
If you are seated outside, like criticizing corruption,
It's a very difficult place to be.
It was
to
a
be
very
outside the
difficult place.
ANC.
And remember, those were the early days. There was a halo around the ANC, and all of
What did you say that they didn't agree
No,
with?
it was a couple of things. I mean, the things on terms of, I was saying, look, if they don't deal with corruption early on, we are going to repeat what happened in other African countries. That corruption is an important thing. And second thing, this thing, cadre deployment. If you're going to do it, but you don't do it based on merit, if you don't bring in non-ANC people also in, and so on, to bring blacks who are competent, whether they're in the ANC or not, bring them into the system, we're going to have a problem.
You are right.
And so on. It's
You
sad,
are 100%
it's sad to say that. And if you Google and you read the stuff, the people will say, oh man, coconut, you want to be white.
Clever black.
The clever black is a reason.
No, I know.
It
was the same concept.
But anyway, it started off with coconut.
Yes.
You are part of white, whatever, you are with white monopoly capital, you are plant, you are CIA agent.
Oh boy,
you got
I forget. There was an era of CIA agents.
Yeah. You got a scholarship to study from the Oppenheimer Memorial Trust. You are Oppenheimer.
we hope for a better day, man. We hope for a South Africa that will deliver for its people.
Yeah.
With all that chaos, we still hope for a South Africa that will make a difference in people's lives.
We have no choice. We have to continue to do our best, as I say, in our own spaces. We cannot control everything. I mean, I can't control any of the political parties, but can I control the space? I have the agency. I've got certain kind of skills. I don't have to wait for political parties to tell me. I don't have to wait for the state to tell me. And they can criticize me, but if I work in the communities and you do something, I mean, that's the... And I think that's what we... for us, because I'm also privileged, and if you have a skill set, you're privileged. If you've got an education, you're privileged.
Absolutely.
So use that to try to do things within your own control.
Do you still teach?
Yeah. I do teach. So I've actually now, let me just say, I am reassessing on what I'm teaching. For many years, I taught members of parliament.
Jeez, look at you now.
I taught the members of parliament program.
Yes.
So for 15 years, I saw every member of parliament, every member of all political parties spend time with me. I look back and I say to myself, well, really?
What did you achieve?
What did I achieve? Are some people beyond teachable?
What are you teaching them?
So what I was teaching, I ran a members of parliament program. So the way I have a philosophy, a teaching philosophy. So, two aspects of my teaching philosophy. One is to teach people a skill set. So to teach a theory around the skill set. So what I did is I taught the parliamentarians the national budget, how to put together a national budget, and then how to play oversight.
So all of them had to understand.
How does it work?
Yes.
And so that's the skill set. So you leave there with that skill set, but then also how then now to be a member of parliament, to play oversight over it.
Okay.
And then the other part of my skills, where my teaching philosophy is to teach comparative. I'm a comparative person. So when you do a course with me, whether it's a master's course or postgraduate diploma, I would teach comparative public policy or development and so on. So I would take you to what they did in Japan, what they did in Brazil, what they did in Algeria, what they did, and so on. So successes and failures. So that people understand the world bigger. Because our problem that we're struggling with our politicians, but also with our ordinary activists, they live in their village and they don't get out of that village view, even when they become members of parliament. But I realize that members of parliament have been there forever, but they still think in the way of their village. Despite the fact that they are national politicians.
Yes. They're still trying to solve local issues.
No, but not only try, but their mindset.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Their mindset is still in their village. And in South Africa, it's a big, complex society. You can't have a village mentality and then put it on top of complex institutions and so on. And so I'm rethinking in terms of what I should be teaching.
Whether what you've been teaching is worthwhile.
Yeah, but the exciting thing is I've done experimental teaching and I'm hoping to continue with that. So when I say experimental teaching, I take a problem in the state and then I bring all of the people who are battling with a problem and then I teach around them. So 2 years ago, what I did is in Limpopo, they had a problem of the special economic zone. I don't know, you know that. Special economic zone has been in crisis, corruption, governance failures. It has just not gotten off the ground. So what I did was with them last year, I said, right, I brought the whole province, the politicians and the public servants and even the mayors of the town, all in one room, believe it or not, for 3 days. And we said, now let me take you how a special economic zone should work. I brought in external people also, so people who've run special economic zones successfully outside South Africa. Okay. Brought in even the UNDP's chief economist. Wow. The UNDP had done research on special economic zones in Africa, for example. And then I brought all of this in one room. And at the end of the day, and then for them, there was an official course. For them to pass, each of them had to do a paper then on how now, after learning that, they will now do this zone or their roles.
And you had willing participants.
Yes, the thing is, if you've done it, you get a certificate. You get a certificate. So I was thinking in terms of maybe, teaching a problem, then bringing the players and then examine the knowledge, the stakeholder, and then let them fix it after going to the course to teach it that way.
Wow, you're just so busy. Make us look like we do nothing. Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure chatting to you. I enjoy these conversations, and that's why I have them so often. It'll happen again very soon. Thank you again so much.
No, thank you.
Wow.
God bless.
Thank you. That's Prof. Gumede for you. He's shared a lot of insight with us, and we'll continue doing that. Thank you so much.
King David Studio Podcast.